Good afternoon everybody, and thanks for joining us today. If we think back to April 7, just before the Easter long weekend, I said that when it was safe to do so, we'd put the welcome mat out again for visitors to the Sunshine Coast. Well, today, just under 2 months later, I'm pleased to say that's exactly what the Sunshine Coast is doing right now. Progressively from this week, more of Council's facilities will reopen with restrictions on patron numbers and ongoing social distancing and hygiene requirements in place. I'm sure this news will be greatly welcomed by our community as they have the opportunity to move around and reconnect with some of their favourite local facilities, services and experiences. Importantly, this will also help provide a welcome boost to our regional economy as more of our local businesses resume operating and indeed people return to work. As a result of the Premier's announcement on Sunday to bring forward stage 2 of the restrictions, the following council facilities will begin reopening this week. Council's 6 holiday parks at Dickey Beach, Mooloolaba, Maroochydore, Cotton Tree, Majimba and Coolum will reopen for intrastate visitors from today. But I would encourage anyone looking to visit the Sunshine Coast to get in quick, as bookings are likely to be snapped up very quickly. Public barbecues will be turned back on this Saturday, the 6th of June. The number of users at any one time at Sunshine Coast playgrounds and exercise equipment and skate parks will double from 10 to 20. And from today, up to 20 people will be able to access Gardeners Falls at Maleny. The recycle markets and waste recovery centres have reopened today. Kings Beach Pool will reopen on Friday, 5 June. Again for 20 patrons. However, swimmers are being warned it is not supervised during the winter months and they should be extra careful. Venue 114, the Council's community spaces including Biwa and Kawana Community Halls, Kawana Island Meeting Place and Bell Vista Meeting Place will open on Monday 8 June with non-contact activity allowed for up to 20 people. Mary Cairncross Scenic Reserve and Discovery Centre will also reopen on Friday, June 12 from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m, Monday to Friday initially, before expanding to 7 days a week from June 26. Bankfoot House will open once again and welcome visitors from June 19, opening on Fridays from 10 till 3 for book tours only. And the Caloundra Regional Gallery will reopen on Wednesday the 17th of June with revised hours of Wednesday to Friday from 10 until 2. Whilst it's great to be able to stand here and announce we are reopening facilities, the public health threat remains with us, and so I'm asking all members of our community to strictly observe and recommend personal hygiene measures. This includes wiping down surfaces in public areas before using them, carrying hand sanitiser and observing social distancing requirements. Council has increased its cleaning regime for public facilities to support the easing of restrictions, but we cannot be everywhere all the time. For example, council staff cannot conduct a complete clean down of every public barbecue after use. So please ensure that you are strictly observing the public health directions in the interest of continuing to keep our community safe. Finally, I know a lot of interest has been in when sporting facilities will reopen, and Council's aquatic centres and indoor sports centres including Caloundra Stadium, Sunshine Coast Stadium and Maroochydore Multi-Sports Complex remain closed at this time. Council is reviewing the arrangements and dates for the reopening of these facilities, noting the COVID-19 safe industry plan needs to be in place for sport, recreation and fitness before facilities of this nature reopen. As soon as the industry plans are released, we will assess and make more announcements regarding these facilities soon. There's also time needed to reactivate the facilities of this nature, including heating of pools, preparation of playing fields, rostering of staff and implementing COVID signage prior to reopening. And just before I conclude and take any questions, I wanted to today recognise on First Responders Day all of the first responders on the Sunshine Coast who have had a hectic year or so, fighting fires, dealing with floods and dealing with an international pandemic in the form of COVID-19. All those people who work hard behind the scenes very often, but providing that first layer of protection for our community. So well done to all of those groups that make up our local disaster management team. and well done to all the first responders. Happy to take your questions.
With holiday parks, sorry if you did mention this, but is there a limit on the amount of people that can stay there at any one time?
Well, obviously we've got to enact the social distancing requirements. There will be some limitations, but as a rule, each of the pads is fairly well spread out from one another, and that should ensure we're planning to see at least, we are planning to see a significant increase in the number of people who want to travel here from intrastate, particularly from southeast Queensland.
You mentioned gardeners' pools. I know that was a problem. You're saying 20 people are allowed at one time. How will that be enforced?
Really good question. Clearly we've got to rely on the common sense of individuals because we don't have sufficient personnel, and nor does QPS to be standing guard on those sort of facilities. In the event that it was the reopening was abused and larger numbers of people went there, it would need to be closed down again, unfortunately. So I'd ask people, and probably it's not the best time of the year for swimming, given the cooler weather's now arrived, but I'd ask people, to be mindful of their personal social distancing, and remember that if there's a large number of people there, then don't stay.
Over the winter months, obviously, usually we get a lot of tourists from down south. What's your view on our borders and when they should open?
Well, clearly we'll be looking to attract as many people from just north of the border as we can, those that are still in Queensland, because they are allowed to travel. The decision to open the borders rests with the state government ultimately. That's a decision for the Premier and her cabinet, I guess with advice from the Chief Medical Officer. My sense is it should be open as soon as we are confident it's safe. I'm not sure that the majority of Queenslanders think we're there yet. I think there's obviously a lot of people involved in the tourism sector in particular who are desperate to see visitors coming from New South Wales and Victoria and Tasmania, South Australia and New Zealand. And I'd like to see that as well, but I think people recognise that we've made a big sacrifice. Let's not undo it too quickly.
And on that, do you think because New South Wales and Victoria had quite a bit of community transmission, there's still that risk there?
Well, I think from what the Premier and the Chief Health Officer have said, that's their concern. It's anyone's guess as to how real that concern is, but clearly there's a lot at stake because there are people involved in the accommodation sector and the tourism sector generally, attractions, restaurants, cafes, that are really under a lot of pressure because we just haven't got that flow of customers escaping the cold in the south to come here and spend their money for winter, even the New Zealanders. So, I'd be keen to see those borders open as quickly as possible. But I do think we need to be certain that we're not putting our community at risk.
Mayor, the NRL kicked off and there's talk again about an additional Queensland team. Should that Queensland team come from the Sunshine Coast?
Well, I think the Sunshine Coast has got as much to offer as anywhere else, but it's a question of timing. Clearly there are other areas in southeast Queensland who've put their hand up as being ideal. The Sunshine Coast, I guess, has been working on a plan where we might host up to 6 games a year to demonstrate our bona fides as a future home for an NRL team. I'm not convinced that that time is right now. We're talking about a significant sum of money that would need funding of major sponsors, somewhere in the order of $30 million. So it's not as easy as just putting your shingle up and saying, we want to be an NRL, or we want an NRL club of our own. I think over time we'll be able to manage it. And it is a question of timing, and right at the moment I'm not sure the timing is perfect for us. I'm not sure it's perfect for anyone for that matter. And I'm also of a view that into the future we will see potentially more relocations of the clubs that are in Sydney now. So I don't think this is the last time this opportunity might present itself.
Will a stadium, an upgrade to our stadium, help the cause, do you think? And is that part of the push? Do we need to get stuck into the state government to say, well, that's just one reason why we want to look at upgrading the stadium?
Oh, absolutely. I think with a stadium of the type we hope to have, seating 24,000 people, you need key sports being played there on a regular basis to fund that. I mean, clearly we've got a longer term view about being ready for things like the Olympics in 2032, and our plan is a staged development of that new stadium or that expanded stadium. And certainly it would be helpful, but at the end of the day, you've still got to be able to find the funding to fund the team, and as I say, that's in the order of circa 30 million plus.
Now, can I ask, Tim Ander was on the coast today, Deputy LNP leader. He was calling on the state government to put some money into the stadium, I think about $20 million, calling on the government to do that. And then when pressed as to whether they would do it, the LNP would do it if they won power, was a little bit more circumspect and said we'd have to see if the community wants a stadium with this scale and size. What do you make of that?
Well, obviously I wasn't there for the interview, but based on what you've said, I would like to think we could get a firm commitment from the LNP. We've got a state election coming up in under 5 months, and there's a very real opportunity for the LNP. I think the people on Sunshine Coast would like to know what they're going to fund, not just what they want the Labor Party to fund. And I would think that there's a lot of critical things on the Sunshine Coast that require investment from the state government. The stadium expansion is one of those. We have various partners involved in contributing funding for that, including the private sector. Also, the Convention and Exhibition Centre in the city heart of Maroochydore is also a vital investment, but so too is public transport. This state election will be incredibly important for the Sunshine Coast, and I'd be encouraging local members of the LNP, and indeed all political parties who intend to stand, be serious about what you're going to commit to deliver for the Sunshine Coast. As I've said often enough now, this region pumps about $1.6 billion a year into state coffers. We need to see more of that coming back here in critical infrastructure.
Mayor, just lastly, on parking, I know during the whole COVID thing, there were lots of free areas and inspectors were giving out cautions rather than fines. Is that all back to normal now?
No, it'll return to normal from July 1. We made a commitment when we first put out our plan around COVID-19 that we would make car parking free until June 30. So from July 1 that will come back into place.